Welcome to Yahoo Finance Live. I'm Shauna Smith alongside Brad Smith, and we got some breaking news out right now on inflation. The latest CPI print coming out at this moment on a month-over-month basis. We are seeing a rise of 0.1%. That was more than expected. We were expecting CPI to come in flat on a month-over-month basis. The headline number coming in line with expectations at 3.1%. The core number, stripping out food and energy on a month-over-month basis, that's up 0.3%, which is in line with what the survey had expected, up from the prior month's reading in terms of that month-over-month move when we saw a 0.2% jump. In terms of that year-over-year number for core CPI, coming in line with expectations, holding steady at 4%, and seeing the reaction in the markets. Some gains here, again, largely expected when it comes to some of those headline numbers here, Brad, with CPI up 3.1% on a year-over-year basis. That core number holding steady at 4% growth on a year-over-year basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were mentioning the futures reaction that we're seeing right now for the Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ. Still seeing some fractional gains across the board. This comes after last week's employment situation data and even a hair of consumer data that came out from the University of Michigan. And ultimately now looking at and getting more of a sense of the inflation and kind of dual mandate picture that the Fed is going to have to wade through at its next meeting. This gives us a little bit more sense, even though some had come into this particular CPI print and said it's not exactly a nothing burger, but it may not move the dial for the Fed as they're going to be looking for even more of a trend to be set here. So that is going to be something that we continue to watch closely just to see how the futures price in what the Fed, the tenor, may look like at that next meeting here. Let's get to Yahoo Finance's Jared Blickery for more of a check of the markets here this morning. Hey, Jared.
Brad, we have a bullish reaction in stocks, and let me just show you what's going on in the Wi-Fi Interactive. NASDAQ leading the majors here, up 44 basis points. You can see we were in the green before the start of the report, and we were drifting up into it. And then we got a nice little spike. And I'm going to go into what has happened historically this year with respect to CPI, because it has been very bullish for stocks. Here's the Dow futures showing a very similar story. Let me get to the interest rates, because that's where the bond market has been kind of wagging the dog, which is everything else. This is 2-year Treasury note futures, so we got a little bit of a spike up. We also got a spike down. Really hard to see this line here, but that was a spike down. If it's up, that means yields are going down. If it's gone down, that means yields are going up, so inverse there. But really not that much higher, which means yields are just sinking a little bit. We have had yields climbing over the last few days, so this would be a reversion. And here's the 10-year futures. This is, we can see a little bit of a spike up here, a little bit of a spike down there. Let's go to gold, because gold has really been on fire after reaching a record high versus US dollar last week. And we can see a little bit of a spike here. So interesting that stocks and gold are having the same reaction, which is up, even though it may be for very different reasons, depending on how you parse the report. Copper, not always such a mover on these reports, but we did get a bit of a spike here. So just a little bit of a movement, and WTI crude oil doesn't usually move too much, and we didn't get that much movement on it. I do want to check out Bitcoin, though, because Bitcoin has been on fire recently. Let me change this to a line chart. Not seeing a whole bunch of sideways to up action here, but not really anything other than some chop. And I do want to check out the US dollar as well. We're going to check out the euro versus US dollar. So we saw the euro here getting a little bit stronger. That means the dollar was weakening on the move, and that would be concurrent with the move that we saw in gold. Lastly, I just want to check the sector action. By the way, this is yesterday's price action. Check out the mega caps, sea of red there, and then just about everything else was green. Callie Cox is going to be on in the next hour. She's going to be talking about, this was the first day, that was yesterday, S&P 500 was in the green, and all the mega caps, the Magnificent Seven, in the red there. Just checking out the pre-market quotes. Let's see, we got XLB, that is the number one performer. That's up about 0.6% in the pre-market. Energy taking a little bit to the downside here, guys.
Yeah, as you're mentioning some of those sectors, it's a reminder that XHB is just coming off of a record close as well, just yesterday, Jared.
XLK, you got tech, you got chip stocks, all of those at record highs.
And the reason I bring up XHB, and you had noted this earlier this morning ahead of this print even coming out, is because when you think about shelter and the index for shelter that came out in this report, that continued to increase. That was one area that we had an eye on, especially with the shelter prices also offsetting a decline in the gasoline index in this most recent reading for November. Also, other indexes that increased in November, including rent, owner's equivalent rent, medical care, motor vehicle insurance as well, and then other indexes for apparel, household furnishings, operations, communication, recreation actually decreased over the month. So, Jared, we'll continue to watch the futures here on This Morning to see where there's a little bit more movement. Appreciate the breakdown.